I'd like to just say a little bit about what I mean by creativity, because I do, in part 2 of the book, which we'll be coming on to in a couple of weeks' time, I do talk quite a bit about the power of the imagination. But here I'm talking specifically about creativity, which is one of the ways in which we do bring the world into being. We are not entirely passive in relation to the world. We don't sit there naively kind of waiting for this world to impress itself on our photographic plate. We go to the world with expectations, with ideas, and we also are capable of altering the way in which we put things together in our mind. So part of the business of actually getting to understand the world at the level of a portal of information, creativity comes into play too. So I'm sort of differentiating what we do in this chapter with what we do later when we come on to imagination. But there's no hard and fast distinction. I mean, as so often in the human world, these distinctions are not black and white. The other thing I thought I would say, because it's not something we often think about, is the nature of creativity in the animal world. There's not much creativity as we understand it in animals. They don't compose music or draw diagrams or paint paintings. But the thing that I do feel is that there is something creative about their response to a new threatening situation. We know that species that are capable of coming up with new solutions to a problem that they could never have been programmed for, these are the ones that really survive. So there's an element in evolution which favors the creative. Yes, you're quite right to make a distinction between creativity and mere problem solving, although creativity sometimes does come into finding a new response to a certain kind of problematic set of circumstances. One of the troubles that you've hinted at is that when people want to scan somebody and do a study on creativity, you can't put somebody in a scanner and say, well, be creative. It doesn't happen like that. So what they tend to do is to ask them to solve problems or make new connections. And you're quite right in saying that this is not really an analogy of what we mean by the great creativity. All problem solving is interesting, but not all of it is highly creative. And I make the kind of reference to filling in your tax information. You have to solve some problems while you're doing your tax return. But on the whole, we don't call this creative unless we're actually engaged in fraud. So I think what it is the ability to allow to come into being a truly new gestalt. That's the nearest I can get. So problem solving doesn't involve a new gestalt. Making connections can certainly involve a new gestalt, but it's in those cases where it does involve it does produce a new gestalt that we talk about it being creative. So it's a very hard thing to describe, but it's slightly like many of the most important things in life, that it's easy to recognize, but it's not so easy to circumscribe in language. Yeah.
That's a